Alaikum class, kindly mark your attendances in the chat option. So typically looking at the sequence of things, we could suggest that we might not be having any session the next week because of the prolonged holidays expected. So we left with a couple of weeks of teaching, and then of course we'll be having presentations from your side. So I would like to utilize as much as time available in this course so that we be able to cover up as much as contents as possible. So we will be concluding today's session on globalization, and then we will be having a comprehensive session on corporate social responsibility today, CSR, the next chapter in the sequence of things. Idea is to then jump into important topics on planning and strategic planning, at least to cover up certain course content for uh, this course. Of course, there are many more modules that are left, especially contents like human resource management, work teams, leadership, motivation. That will be some of the covered from the presentations that you will be providing us as a group assessment. But as you will move up in the semesters, I think the next semester you will be having a course on human resource management, and then perhaps in the end semesters you'll be having courses on strategic management and on international business and many more. So you'll be able to recover some of the contents that are there. There will be definitely be a course on organizational behavior, OB, in the sixth semester of the BBA program. Typically, that will discuss furthermore in terms of the management related issues related to individuals, to groups, but also to the organizational level uh, trends and methods that are there. So within the semester system, within the given timeline, we have tried our level best to accumulate as much as we could with a lot of compromise in terms of the overall length of a course, but also we're keeping a delicate balance between contents, updated trends, but also in terms of cases and examples as well. So जब भी cases examples आती हैं कोर्स कंटेंट की स्पीड ऑफ कोर्स कंप्रोमाइज हो जाती है और हमने देखा institutes like IBA and others, they just typically focus on cases, not on chapters of any books. तो वहाँ तो ये issue ही नहीं है, the strategy is so different. We have perhaps are bound in an embedded model. We'll be looking at examples, cases, but also contents as well. Dominantly contents, dominantly subjective contents, and then focusing on here and there in terms of examples that could be suitable enough. I hope now we have ample audience available. We could proceed to our course content. Last few topics in the globalization chapter, especially from the management of the global environment. There are few models that are universally acceptable models or highly researched models. So there is a lot of appreciation among managers about these models that we are currently looking at, especially the next one that is on on national differences in terms of culture. The Hofstede model is recognized as one of the authenticated tool for examining national cultural differences. But there are many models that are there in terms of how to manage in the global environment. We looked at global influences from three forces: political, economic, and then socio-cultural. Some of the models have also discuss multiple factors that are important once we are comparing operations and activities across different national borders. One of this model is called the uh, distances model. Why we calling it the global distances model? Idea is we looking for similarities and differences among countries. This model basically talks about four important aspects related to global operations. We're looking at cultural distances, administrative distances, geographical distances, and economic distances. If you could look at older models, you will find that is very similar to the ones that we will be discussing in the past as well. Looking at multiple aspects, I will not be able to explain every single one of them because of the time constraints, but giving you an idea here and there why we calling it the distances model. If, for example, looking at the cultural distances, if two countries where you want to operate as a host, as a home, remember the home and host debate? A home country is where you have started your operations, and now if you're going beyond the national borders into another country, that country will be classified as a host, hosting you from where you have originated. So if the two countries, one is home and host, have similar languages, the cultural distances will be small, and therefore it will be much more easier to manage, to understand, and to sort of copy but not relate things to two countries. For example, if you see Pakistan and India, though there are many cultural distances that are there, but still language and many more things are much more common in the two countries because both are subcontinent countries. But if you compare Pakistan with Netherlands or like with Singapore or even with Taiwan in Japan, you find many differences that are there. In fact, language is one of the major differences as well because language is one of the source of culture and norms as well. So if the languages are different, you see cultural distances will be more. The habits, the rituals, the practices of people will vary from one country to another. Again, lack of connective ethnic or social networks. If you both countries have same origin, that is, the people are from same ethnic origins, you would suggest that countries will have similarities rather than differences. Ethnicity is the thing that is associated with the people's origin. For example, not to discriminate, if we talk about the Pashtuns, you see that Pashtuns are living in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in other parts of the world as well, but concentrated around here, in northern areas, like northern connected areas. So they will have similarities in the way they behave. They are living in different countries, but then they have the same ethnic origin. So if a lack of connected ethnicity or presence of connected ethnicity in the background, they will have similar ways to behave or vice versa. So useful model it is in identifying each aspect of it, you'll be able to either write there are differences or there are no, or there are major differences or there are minor differences. And you will then be able, as a manager, be able to understand whether sitting in that country as a host, you will be able to manage it differently or very similarly. So if there are similarities, you'll be at ease. You'll be like following the same operations, same activities in both countries. If there are major differences, definitely you need to mold, adjust, and be flexible enough to accommodate or adapt to that changes that are there. Let's look at some of the other aspects like the administrative distances. For example, if the two countries have been or are currently the colony of a particular regime, like you found that in subcontinent, also in Africa, you find that most of these countries were the colonies of the British. So you find that in the formality, like in especially in the way they operate, like the way the bureaucratic setup is, you find a lot of similarities around there because they are part of the same colonial tie. If the colonial tie is missing, you see that they be having so many different approaches of managing things around there. So in our formality, the way we publicly manage things in the public sector organizations, you find that there is a lot of flair of the similar British approach. उसी तरीके से हम चीज़ों को मैनेज करते थे जैसे ब्रिटिश फोर्सेस मैनेज करती थी। जिन जिन कंट्रीज में कॉलोनियल टाइज मौजूद हैं और वो अभी तक स्ट्रेंथफुल हैं, वहाँ हमें इस तरह के सिमिलर अप्रोचेस नजर आएंगे। पॉलिटिकल हॉस्टिलिटी द वे वी लुक्ड एट लास्ट टाइम है, यानी डेमोक्रेसी है या ऑटोक्रेसी है, आ, आ, या मोनार्की है। इनके वेरिएंस से पता चलता है कि वहाँ की पॉलिटिकल कंटिन्यूटी और टैक्सेस और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रूटीन्स क्या होंगी। Some countries will find there are presidential setup. In other countries, the democracy is based on the parliamentary setup है, यानी वहाँ हमें नजर आता है कि वो more decentralized model है और कहीं बहुत ही highly centralized presidential models हैं। यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स more presidential political setup है। तो variation in that will also creates uh, variation in practices, the way the things are governed and managed around it. Institutions, these are governing institutions. Institutions are bodies that govern things. If we have institutions that are common, like if you've been managed by IMF in both countries, the IMF policies will remain stable across the two. If one is managed by IMF, other is self-managed, there are differences that are there. This is a useful model. At the end of the day, you'll be able to compare a lot of things among countries. Of course, you might be able to do multiple comparison at the same time. You will list all countries where you are approaching and able to list up all these factors and then see if there are pluses and there are minuses or there are differences or there are closeness among that. Physical remoteness, this is the geographical distance that are you talking about. If your two countries are physically connected, you see that there might be closer similarities between the two. The two countries are far away, remotely disconnected, you see there will be geographical differences. Now this has implications for costing, logistics, procurement and many more. जो business के जो operations हैं वो इससे affect होंगे। अगर physical remoteness होगी तो transportation, logistic charges बढ़ जाएंगे और आपकी जो overhead cost है वो increase होगी। If there are physical borders that are available, you see that you be at a greater advantage. I think you can now understand why China is so much interested to have this CPEC route ready as soon as possible. Because if you look at the map, China is need to come through the far away seashores of their borders and then come to economies and markets in Europe and in Africa and in Asia. If they have this corridor available through Pakistan, they be able to cut down the geographical distances that are there and be able to manage things in a better way. If a country is big, huge like United States, you see that there are different dynamics to a country which is small and limited like Pakistan. Resources के लिहाज से भी और approaches के लिहाज से भी और उसकी international positioning के लिहाज से भी इसमें differences exist करते हैं. So geography itself has got a dynamics here. Lack of sea or river access also cut your movement of goods through alternative means. You need to send them through air cargo, your transportation charges multiply based on that. Of course, weather and climate also tend to be different among different countries. And that's why the habits of people indirectly or even the nature of operations you could carry out around there will also vary. Minus 45 degree in Canada is a hostile climate. Similarly, above 45-50 degrees in Pakistan, that is now we approaching towards, again, is a very hostile environment. Eating habits, buying habits tend to vary from people to people once they are living in a different climates that are there. If climates are similar, the products and the equipment tool, they tend to be similar as well. Same is the case with economic distances. You see there are tend to be differences in countries in terms of GDP, per capita income, but also in terms of the various resources that are there. You see, natural resources tend to vary from country to country. There are countries which have ample oil available as a resource. In other countries, they're dependent upon exporting this to their own country. Like Pakistan, spend a lot of money exporting oil from outside countries. because it's one of the major resource used in their multiple industries. Similarly, in case of the infrastructure, even human resources and other immediate inputs like raw material, if they're not available in your country, your cost multiplies and you have to pay certain additional duties and you need to set at higher prices to sell it, and therefore your uh, economic way indicators will be so different. So once you're looking at differences in those countries, you also be looking at differences in terms of their economic factors. In many ways, it's a very useful model. You be able to look at these attributes which create distances among or differences among countries, and therefore it will guide you in many ways how to manage differently in different countries. Because in internationalization, you need to go across national borders. I think we perhaps recognize the fact that cultural and social elements are equally important as far as the operations in different countries are concerned. We looked at different blueprints committed by top-notch organizations. So it's a greater realization that if you don't manage your operations according to the national differences in terms of cultures, you might be committing fatal mistakes and your product sales may drastically drop down, or you'll be facing stiff resistance in those countries from consumers but also from many of the suppliers and distributors as well. So it's important that we should be comparing and analyzing national level differences in terms of cultures. Hofstede framework, which is world recognized framework in terms of national cultural differences. It is based on five factors, which is there is a versus between them. First item, as you could see, is individualism versus collectivism. Remember, we did talk about this as a national difference between United States and Japanese firms. We looked at why United States firms tend to typically follow highly centralized, independent, individualistic approach, and why Japanese firms tend to follow a consensus-based, cooperation-based, collective approach. Because the national culture is like, so national culture is affecting the way the workforce is managed around there. So we're looking at a versus between every one of these factors. Individualism versus collectivism is one of the way we compare national differences in terms of culture. Second is the power distances. Somewhere the power distance is more, another way power distance is smaller. Where power distance reflects the way we give respect to powerful people or not, and the way the general public are close to the power or away from the power. And if the general public is close to the power, they will have more rights. As a general audience, we see the rights of every single individual. We see that power distance is small. But if powerful in a country are small in number, but they be exercising for their own interest, an overall population is usually helpless, is facing the consequences of things, you suggest that you are away from the power. So in some countries, power distance is high. In some countries, power distance is low. So is power distance low versus power distance high? There is also a versus in this. Similarly, you're looking at uncertainty avoidance. This relates to taking risk. If you avoid uncertainty, you're not taking risk, and therefore your risk taking is low. So risk taking low versus risk taking high. High risk taking. Low risk taking versus high risk taking. That is the versus around it. There are, of course, countries which may be moderate in some. So moderate risk taking is also there. A moderate power distance could also be there. But in individualism, mostly there is polar, either you're individualistic or collective, or partially individualistic or partially collective. You could also suggest that. So if you're looking at two countries, like if you're comparing Pakistan versus Australia, for example, you see that there will be differences in two countries based on these factors that are there. The quantity of life versus the quality of life. There is also verses around here where the quality of life is related to the relationships, giving importance to relationships and to social norms and values. That's the way our Asian countries mostly are. Japanese, Pakistanis, they all believe in the importance of family and relationships. Whereas the countries that focus on quantity of life, they focuses on monetary returns, and commercialism and his status, and to improve your personal well-being in terms of your economic well-being especially. So in that case, those countries believe in quantity of life rather quality of life. That's the way we looked at national differences. Finally, long-termness versus short-termness, short-term orientation versus long-term. Some countries, they tend to plan things way ahead, 50 years well before the time, for example 20 years well before the time. It's very hypothetical to develop for longer years nowadays because of the dynamism and faster pace of things. But then generally they tend to plan everything well before time. And in other countries, you see that they're more reactive in nature, and they basically focus on short-term orientation. Based on these values, the Hofstede framework has been discussed a lot, comparing a lot of countries that are there, and there are then implications for managers who are working in either of those countries or working in multiple countries straight away. आपके पास अगर मल्टीपल असाइनमेंट्स हैं और आप एक कंट्रीज में से एक से ज़्यादा कंट्री में काम कर रहे हैं, ये मॉडल बड़ा यूज़फुल है और आप इसमें से इंडिकेशन ले सकते हैं कि वहाँ के लोग कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस होते हैं इन फैक्टर्स की बेस पे, और योर वर्क हैबिट्स भी डेफिनेटली उस हिसाब से डेवलप हो जाती हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप देखें ऑस्ट्रेलिया, कैनेडा, इंग्लैंड, फ्रांस, दे आर इंडिविजुअलिस्टिक इन नेचर, वेरी डिफिकल्ट, हार्ड टू डेवलप टीम्स एंड ग्रुप्स अराउंड देयर है. इम्प्लीकेशन देख लेते हैं, क्योंकि टीम्स वहां बनती हैं जहाँ कलेक्टिवनेस हो, कंसेंसस डेवलप हो. ग्रीस, जापान, मैक्सिको, सिंगापुर, वेनेजुएला, you see collectivism is around, so it's much more easier to develop already established norm is there, you work around teams and groups. So a national attribute जो है वो फिर work attribute में भी convert. Uncertainty avoidance को देख लेते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज मॉडरेट, इट्स नॉट अ टोटली डेवलप्ड कंट्री. जहाँ डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज आएंगे आप देखिएगा वहाँ अनसर्टेनिटी अवॉइडेंस लो होती है, यानी वो हाई रिस्क टेक. हाई रिस्क टेकिंग का इंडिकेटर ये होता है लॉट ऑफ मनी एक्सपेरिमेंटिंग, क्रिएटिंग न्यू इनोवेशंस आर एट हाई. तो ऑस्ट्रेलिया में है इनोवेशन लेकिन मॉडरेट है, उस लेवल की नहीं, जैसे कि हाईली डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज लाइक अमेरिका, जर्मनी, स्वीडन में नजर आएंगी. आप देखें स्वीडन लो अनसर्टेनिटी अवॉइडेंस है. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में, कनाडा में देखिए लो है. तो वी वी लुक एट दैट. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में भी लो अनसर्टेनिटी अवॉइडेंस है. दे टेक लॉट ऑफ रिस्क क्रिएटिंग समथिंग न्यू. और उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस देख लें हम, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा डेवलपमेंट वहाँ होती है, फिर हम उसको कॉपी कर रहे होते हैं. इनोवेशन और डेवलपमेंट का काम ज़्यादा ज़्यादा इन कंट्रीज में होता है, फिर उनकी टेक्नोलॉजी को फॉलो करते हैं. जर्मनी लो uncertainty avoidance है. They love to take lot of risk around there. We are risk avoiders in many ways है. अगर हम रिस्क अवॉइड करते हैं तो फिर हमारा अनसर्टेनिटी अवॉइडेंस हाई होगा. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. ग्रीक पीपल, इटली जो कि यूरोप नजर आता है, इवन जापान एंड मेक्सिको, दे टेंड टू अवॉइड टेकिंग रिस्क्स. दैट्स द वे द नेशनल एट्रीब्यूट इज. क्वांटिटी ऑफ लाइफ पे बात हो गई है, तो वाइस वर्सा क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ की बात भी समझ आ जाएगी. समझ लें क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ इज नॉट दी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ लाइफ है, जिसमें आपको हाई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मिले, अच्छा इन्वायरमेंट, नीट एंड टाइडी इन्वायरमेंट मिले, आपका इन्वायरमेंट अच्छा हो लिविंग का, तो वो क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ अच्छी होगी. यहाँ क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ है इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ रिलेशनशिप्स, सोशल टाइज, इन्फ्लुएंस फ्रॉम सोशल एंड अदर फैक्टर्स, जो कि ग्रुप में और इन्वायरमेंट में रहने वाले जो फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर है या नेबरहुड है उससे बनता है. सो क्वांटिटी लाइफ वहाँ होगा जहाँ आपका फोकस रिलेशनशिप्स की बजाय मॉनेटरी टर्म्स पे हो. जितनी भी डेवलप कंट्रीज आप देखिएगा वहाँ क्वांटिटी ऑफ लाइफ स्ट्रॉन्ग होगा. ऑस्ट्रेलिया, इंग्लैंड, इटली, जापान एंड मैक्सिको, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स, वेनेजुएला, strong focus on quantity of life. They believe in terms of generating money and improving their economic status at all time. Organizations we are driven by success, and therefore they're focusing overwhelmingly on generating profits. At times they do it by compromising the relationships with other stakeholders. ये भी समझने की जरूरत है, इसके consequences हैं. जहाँ moderate to low होगा, weak होगा, quantity of life and quality of life ज़्यादा होगी. My great delicate balance होगा between profit making but also taking care of community and other things. That's why हम देखते हैं top notch countries like United States, Canada, Australia, यहाँ बहुत hue and cry है. आने वाला चैप्टर इस पे बात करता है. That is they ignore the importance of other stakeholders like community, society, customers, and many more. They basically are scrutinized for not taking care of the social issues, and they're not contributing toward the social initiatives at all, because generally those countries quantity of life is more. I mean बहुत सारी implications का जिक्र हम कर सकते हैं इस हवाले से। फॉर एग्जाम्पल पावर डिस्टेंस पे बात करते हैं। अब वैसे तो इसमें पावर डिस्टेंस पे हमें बात करनी चाहिए दी सोशल क्लासेस की, एलीट क्लास, मिडिल क्लास एंड ऑल्सो दी लो क्लास, लो मिडिल क्लास एंड लो क्लास पे बात होनी चाहिए। हम देखते हैं जनरली यूरोप अमेरिकाज में, डेवलप कंट्रीज में मिडिल क्लास सबसे ज़्यादा है और उसके राइट्स भी उतने ही ज़्यादा हैं। वोटिंग राइट से लेकर राइट्स टूवर्ड्स सर्विसेज एंड फैसिलिटीज़ भी उतने ही ज़्यादा है। वो कोशिश करते हैं स्क्वीज डाउन करें एलीट लेवल को और लो लेवल को, तो वो कम से कम रह जाए, ज़्यादातर लोग मिडिल क्लास में आ जाए और तमाम रूल्स रेगुलेशन मिडिल क्लास के हिसाब से बने। जबकि हमारे यहाँ हम देखते हैं कि हमारे यहाँ लो क्लास बहुत ही है। इवन में मिडिल क्लास भी पाकिस्तान में कहना चाहिए कि है, लेकिन अब मिडिल क्लास की क्लासिफिकेशन डेफिनेशन इतनी पुअर है कि हम इतनी स्ट्रिक्ट है कि हम उसमें फिट इन ही नहीं आते। कितने लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके पास मंथ एंड पर इतनी सेविंग बच जाती है कि जिसको अगले मंथ में कैरी कर सके, बहुत कम। तो ऐसे लोग फिर लो क्लास कंसिडर होंगे, वो मिडिल क्लास भी कंसिडर। मिडिल क्लास है सम सेविंग्स एट द एंड ऑफ द मंथ। तो हमारे यहाँ लो क्लास सबसे ज्यादा है और उनके पास पावर उतनी ही कम है, क्योंकि हमारे पास एलीट क्लास बिल्कुल थोड़ी सी है, मैक्सिमम पावर उसके पास है। तो हमारे यहाँ हम देखते हैं पीपल आर अवे फ्रॉम दी पावर, पावर डिस्टेंस इज सो हाई। उसकी निशानी बड़ी अच्छी है, बड़ी गाड़ी जा रही हो तो पुलिस वाला नहीं रोकता, छोटी गाड़ी जा रही है तो उसको रोक, वो रिस्पेक्ट करता है जिसके पास ज्यादा पावर। इससे भी नजर आता है कि पावर से हम दूर हैं, पावर से दूर हैं तो पावर वाले की रिस्पेक्ट करनी पड़ती है। बाकी बास कंट्री में देख रहे हैं कि पावर स्मॉल है, everyone has to be following the rules and regulations, as if someone is big cannot वाइड दी रूल्स। अगर वो भी ओवर स्पीडिंग करता है तो उसको भी टिकट इश्यू होता है, वो टिकट वापस नहीं करते वो। हमारे यहाँ तो यूजुअली जब इस तरह का इश्यू होता है तो बाद में पुलिस वाले को ट्रांसफर कराते हैं। हमारे यहाँ ये सेटअप ऐसा है, तो इसलिए हम हमारे यहाँ पावर डिस्टेंस कम है। फिर हमारे यहाँ करप्शन, सिफारिश और रिश्वत इस वजह से ज़्यादा कॉमन है। हमने कोई काम करवाना होता है तो पावरफुल से कॉल करवानी पड़ती है, उससे कॉल ना करवाएं, रेफरेंस ना हो तो काम नहीं होता। हमारे यहाँ पब्लिक सेक्टर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बुरे तरीके से इस निज़ाम में जकड़ी हुई हैं। हमारे कंट्री में पावर डिस्टेंस ज़्यादा है। अब इसकी इम्प्लीकेशन देखते हैं। एनी फॉरेन कंट्री फर्म विल कम टू पाकिस्तान टू ऑपरेट। अब वो अपने काम करवाना चाहती है पब्लिक सेक्टर में ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से, लाइक जो डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटीज़ होती हैं, सिविल वर्क होता है, टैक्सेशन डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं। अब वहाँ तो सिफारिश और रिश्वत चलती है, तो फिर वो क्या करेंगी, मजबूरन उनको भी इस प्रैक्टिस में इन्वॉल्व होना पड़ेगा। उनको पता है कि इसके बगैर काम नहीं चलेगा। तो फिर ओवरहेड कॉस्ट उन कंपनीज के लिए और एडिशनल नजर आती है वेयर पावर डिस्टेंसेस हाई, otherwise they be like operating very regularly easily in their countries. Looking at this model, we could also cast an implication on how a manager will be taking up an international assignment. We recognize that there are differences. We also recognize that managers may not be ready to take up international assignments. Usually this comes with the experience and they be like given the responsibility to take up international assignments, but then if they're not ready for international assignments, they should prepare themselves. You see, they should be able to enjoy challenge, open to criticism, seek feedback, be flexible enough to adjust to differences they find in those countries. They should have diagnostic ability to check and seek problems which may be unique and different to their regular past habits. If you're courageful enough, a lot of courage is required in international assignments. You have to take a lot of risk as well. But most importantly, you need to be able to assess and be sensitive to cultural differences that are there, cross cultural sensitivity. आपने रिकग्नाइज करना है इस कंट्री की हैबिट ऐसी है, कल्चर ऐसा है जो शायद आपकी पर्सनल वैल्यू से भी मैच ना करता हो, फिर भी आपने उसके साथ किसी हद तक एडजस्टमेंट करनी है। International assignments therefore are more challenging, more complex tasks, and managers find it very difficult to live up to the experience, and therefore it requires a lot of efforts on the behalf of managers. and they need to through communication, development, interaction, and flexibility. They will be able to manage international assignments. जब आप international management के courses में जाएंगे, IB international business के courses में जाएंगे, तो फिर आप further detail में every aspect of the global operations को पढ़ेंगे. आप ग्लोबल एचआर की बात कर रहे होंगे, ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन का जिक्र ले रहे होंगे, ग्लोबल फाइनेंसिस को मैनेज करने की बात कर रहे होंगे. इसी तरीके से ग्लोबल मैनेजमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस को भी देख रहे होंगे in terms of variations that are there. So then managers most likely you need to be flexible enough, believe in continuous improvement, and be able to adapt to the environment that is around there. We have a less than a minute into this session. We will be, inshallah, joining back around 2 p.m. for the second session for 30 minutes more. And we will be focusing on our next module, that is on corporate social responsibility. Very interesting topic, very new perspective about businesses, especially coming from the domain of business ethics. Business ethics is integration of ethics and business values. Ethics is the science of right versus the wrong. In fact, I'm currently also teaching business ethics to BBA sixth semester. The course is available in the sixth semester. Sixth semester is a very interesting one. The three major frames that I be associated with as an academic are all in the sixth semester. I be like teaching business ethics, but also I be like expert into MIS, Management Information Systems, again the sixth semester. But I also be like teaching organization behavior, OB, as a course. Very interestingly, all these three come tend to be in the same semesters. So it's a build-up semester, usually the sixth, seventh, and eighth, so that you are aware of the futuristic trends, key elements that are touching business world. This is another area that is very hot nowadays. That is, top-notch organizations are being heavily scrutinized for their inability to foresee beyond their stockholders, investors, able to look beyond profit maximizing, and they're living in a community but ignoring the community. That's the way we look at businesses nowadays. Requires managers to rethink about businesses just as profit maximizing entities. Rather, it calls for looking for organization as a complete unit, interconnected unit within and outside to multiple stakeholders. His idea is to provide value to all, if not all, to maximum entities within and outside the organization. So it calls for a refresh perspective of defining what your business is. बिजनेस को डिफाइन करने की हवाले से बहुत सारी क्रिटिसिज्म है इसमें, और हम वापस आएंगे तो हम देखेंगे हाउ कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पांसिबिलिटी एंड एथिक्स आर बीन डिफाइंड एंड हाउ इट affects the way we be like operating as a manager. So inshallah, for a mass break, this 10 minutes, we'll be back inshallah at 2 p.m. for the second session.